My wife's sister prepared a little love nest for my wife and her new lover. I canceled the credit cards of her family and fired my wife's sister from her job. I waited for my wife's family to go bankrupt and end up on the street. When the plane touched down at JFK at 3:15 a.m., the pilot said, "Welcome to New York," like he was proud of himself for landing a plane that basically lands itself. I should have been in Milan shaking hands with investors, sipping overpriced espresso, pretending to enjoy conversation with men who smell like imported leather and betrayal. Instead, I was in a hoodie, jeans, and sneakers, sneaking back home to Long Island like some undercover husband on a secret mission. Why? Because my wife, Claire, had called me 6 hours earlier and said, "Babe, take your time. Don't rush home." Any married man knows that tone. The one that sounds sweet but makes your stomach drop like a roller coaster. It's the "don't rush home, because I've already done something stupid" tone. Now, let me be clear, Claire wasn't the cheating type. At least, that's what I used to believe back when optimism was my drug of choice. But lately, she'd been acting off. Late-night work calls, gym trips where her makeup somehow stayed flawless. The kind of glow that didn't come from yoga mats or kale smoothies. So, when she said those 4 words, "Don't rush home, babe," I decided I'd rush home like the last man on earth trying to catch his own dignity before it hit the ground. I told my driver, Marcos, "We're not going through the main gate tonight." He gave me that confused look through the rearview mirror, the one he usually reserves for when I tell him to play classic rock instead of his telenovela podcasts. "Sir," he said cautiously, "you mean the back entrance?" "Yeah," I muttered, tightening my hoodie. "Let's surprise her." He smirked, a dangerous kind of smirk, like he knew what kind of surprise I was walking into. The drive from JFK to Long Island felt longer than the actual flight. Every red light felt personal. Every passing car looked suspicious. My brain was spinning scenarios like a Netflix scriptwriter. Maybe she was planning a surprise welcome. Maybe she burned something and didn't want me to see. Or maybe, and this one hit hardest, maybe my marriage had turned into one of those bad reality shows where the audience knows the twist before the clueless husband does. When we pulled up to the house, I told Marcos to kill the headlights. The place looked too perfect. The porch lights glowed like stage spotlights. The driveway was clear, and even the garden gnomes seemed to be smirking at me. I slipped off my shoes before stepping inside. The marble floor was cold, colder than the silence that greeted me. I'd expected the faint smell of her lavender candles or the annoying hum of the air purifier she insisted on keeping at spa mode. Instead, the house was spotless, too spotless. The kind of clean you get when you're trying to erase evidence, not dust. I passed the kitchen, not a single dish in the sink. The dining table looked like a magazine spread. Then came the master bedroom. The bed was perfectly made, pillows aligned like military cadets, sheets tucked tight enough to bounce a coin off. You ever walk into your own home and feel like you're trespassing? That's what it felt like. My own house suddenly smelled like someone else's alibi. Then I heard it. Faint laughter coming from upstairs. Soft, playful wrong. The kind of laugh that doesn't belong in a house at 3:30 in the morning unless you're either crazy or cheating. I froze, every instinct screaming, "Don't go up there." But curiosity is a strong drug, and I've always had terrible self-control. Step by step, I crept up the staircase, barefoot, quiet as a rumor. The laughter got louder. The voices, 2 of them, were coming from the guest room. The one Claire and I had been planning to turn into a nursery someday, back when we still said someday, like it was a promise, not a punchline. The door was cracked open, lights spilling out like guilt. I took a slow breath, pushed it just enough to see. There she was, Lily, my wife's sister. The kind of woman who walks into a room and makes you check your wallet. She was standing next to a young guy, maybe mid-20s, wearing my Versace shirt. My favorite one, the one I wore on our honeymoon in Santorini. I recognized the pattern instantly. Hard to forget something that cost more than my first car. The guy looked relaxed, too relaxed, like he was house shopping. "This room's perfect for you and Claire," Lily said, her tone bubbly, fake, the kind of enthusiasm you reserve for Instagram captions. She deserves a peaceful space for her new start. My heart didn't stop. It just got quiet. Claire's new start. Without me? I stood there, invisible, watching Lily hand this stranger my life on a silver platter. The guy, let's call him Discount Romeo, smirked, looking around. Yeah, this'll work. This'll work, I whispered under my breath. That's what he said about my house. I built this place from the ground up, literally. Every wall, every design, every mortgage payment, me. And here he was, auditioning to move in like a contestant on The Bachelor, Homewrecker edition. Then Lily laughed again. Claire says she's finally done playing wife to that boring ATM she married. That one cut deeper than I expected. Not because it wasn't true. I had become her personal bank account, but because Lily said it with confidence. The kind of confidence that only comes from hearing it repeated by someone close. I took out my phone, started recording. Not for revenge, not yet, but because part of me needed proof. Proof that I wasn't losing my mind. Proof that the woman I loved, the one I defended through every snide remark from friends and family, was actually planning her new start with a kid wearing my clothes. I wanted to storm in, throw the door open, and make a scene. But something inside me, maybe pride, maybe exhaustion, said no. Don't give them the show. Not yet. The best revenge isn't loud. It's patient, quiet, surgical. I hit stop on the recording and backed away. Step by step, I retraced my path down the stairs. My heart was racing, but my face, calm, ice cold. That's the thing about betrayal. It doesn't kill you instantly. It freezes you first. Outside, the air hit my face like a slap. Marcos was leaning against the car, sipping coffee from a paper cup. He saw me and immediately straightened up. "Bad night, sir?" he asked softly. I just looked at him. The words felt too small for what I'd just witnessed. "Worse for them soon," I finally said. He didn't ask questions. Smart man. He just opened the door, and I got in. The leather seats were warm, comforting in a way nothing else was. I stared out the window as we drove off. The house got smaller in the rearview mirror, but the anger, that stayed. At some point, Marcos turned on the radio, maybe to break the silence. Some late-night jazz number started playing, smooth, lazy, too calm for the storm brewing in my head. I closed my eyes and exhaled slowly. I wasn't going to cry, and I wasn't going to scream. Those were rookie moves. I was going to plan. See, I built my company from nothing. I knew how to start from the ground up, how to strategize, how to dismantle. And if there's one thing I've learned from business, it's that no one destroys you without your permission. Claire just revoked hers. By the time we reached my office downtown, the sky was starting to lighten. The city looked asleep, unaware that one husband had just declared quiet war on his marriage. Marcos parked, turned, and asked, "Home, sir?" I smiled faintly. "Oh, I am home. I just have to rearrange a few things first." I grabbed my phone, opened the recording, and hit play. Lily's voice echoed through the speakers. That boring aim she married. I replayed it 3 times. Not out of masochism, but motivation. That sentence was going to fund my revenge. "Marcos," I said, stepping out of the car, "get some rest. We've got a long week ahead." He raised an eyebrow. "A week of what, sir?" I zipped up my hoodie, adjusted my collar, and said with a calm that scared even me, "A week of collecting overdue respect." The door shut behind me, and that was it. The exact moment my marriage died and my comeback story began. Claire wanted a peaceful space for her new start. She was about to get one, just not the kind she imagined. By 5 a.m., I was in my home office with a mug of black coffee that could strip paint and a petty God sense of purpose. You know that eerie calm before a storm? That was me, hair messy, hoodie still on, sitting in my ergonomic chair like a villain who just discovered his origin story. I hadn't slept a minute. Not because I couldn't, but because sleep felt like a luxury I couldn't afford when my wife had just turned my house into an Airbnb for betrayal. The office smelled like caffeine, old leather, and revenge. I powered up my desktop, the one I built to monitor all my company's accounts, portfolios, and, most importantly, the network of credit cards I generously distributed like party favors to Claire and her charming family of leeches. 6 platinum cards in total. 1 for Claire, 1 for her parents, 1 for her sister Lily, and 2 for her cousins, whom I swear multiply like a bad virus every Christmas. They love to call me family. I was starting to think the word meant walking ATM with health insurance. The second my screen lit up, I cracked my knuckles and grinned. It was time. You see, I'm not the type to flip tables or yell. No, I'm the type to freeze your accounts while sipping coffee. I opened the finance portal, logged in, and hovered my mouse over manage cards. I swear, for a split second, I heard a choir in the distance. The Holy Spirit of Spite had logged on. Click. Freeze card number 1, Claire. Click. Freeze card number 2, Lily. Click. Freeze card number 3, Mr. and Mrs. Thompson. Click. Freeze card number 4 and number 5, those freeloading cousins. 5 minutes later, my computer screen looked like a financial apocalypse. Each little frozen icon felt like a personal therapy session. I took a long sip of coffee, leaned back, and whispered to myself, "Behold, the wrath of an accountant with admin access." Then came the emails. Because vengeance without documentation is just pettiness, and I like my pettiness with receipts. I composed one message and sent it to everyone on that little freeloading tree. Subject line, System Maintenance Notice. Body, due to recent discrepancies in financial activity, all secondary cards are under review. Please refrain from using them until further notice. Polite. Professional. Cold enough to make Elsa proud. A few seconds later, my phone buzzed. Marcos peeked his head into the office, holding his own cup of coffee. "You look happy, sir," he said, his eyebrows doing the skeptical tango. "Marcos," I said, grinning like a man who just found religion. "Revenge burns more calories than cardio." He chuckled nervously. "Should I be worried?" "Only if you're married to a Thompson," I muttered, scrolling through my contacts. See, I wasn't done. Cutting off their credit supply was just foreplay. The real fun was about to start. Because my dear sister-in-law Lily, yes, the same one who'd been auditioning men for her sister's new start, had a job at Eastwood Design Group. A job she got because I pulled strings, made calls, and donated a chunk of money to the company's renovation fund. Without me, she'd still be waitressing at that overpriced brunch spot in Soho, calling every mimosa a vibe. I dialed the number of Eastwood's HR director, a woman named Diane who owed me at least 3 favors. "Diane, good morning," I said in that smooth, corporate voice that usually precedes very bad news. "Mr. Merrick, it's very early," she replied, her voice thick with confusion and sleep. "Yeah, sorry for the hour," I said, "but I need something handled immediately. Terminate Lily Thompson. Effective today." There was a pause, one of those shocked, uncomfortable silences you could butter toast with. "Sir, she's your sister-in-law, isn't she?" "Correction," I said dryly, "was." She hesitated. "But she just got promoted last month. And now she just got unemployed this morning," I interrupted. "You can tell her to frame her termination letter. Maybe she can use it as decor for her new apartment. Assuming she can afford rent now." Diane didn't ask for details. She didn't need to. The tone in my voice said it all. "Understood, sir. I'll handle it discreetly." "Perfect," I said. "And Diane?" "Yes, sir. Make sure security escorts her out. I'd hate for her to steal office supplies on the way out." The call ended, and I sat back, savoring the silence. You could practically feel the karmic shift in the air. Somewhere across the city, Lily was probably still asleep, dreaming about her promotion and her new start. She'd wake up soon to discover that karma doesn't do sleep-ins. By 6:30 a.m., my phone lit up like a Christmas tree. First came Lily. "Why isn't my card working?" She texted, followed by 3 angry emojis and the classic. I ignored it. Then came Claire. "Honey, something's wrong with the account." Then her dad. "Son, I'm at the dealership. My card's declined. Is the bank down?" Oh, that one made me laugh out loud. The image of that pompous old man standing in a suit, trying to buy another luxury car with my money, only to get rejected by a cashier with a pity smile. It was art. I typed back to all of them, "System update. Try again next century." Then I hit send. I leaned back, watching the sun start to rise through my office window. Golden light spilled across the mahogany desk, glinting off the awards I'd earned, the ones none of them ever respected. Claire used to joke that I loved my work more than her. Maybe she was right. But work had never lied to me, never sneaked another man into my home, never drained me dry under the guise of family. Marcos came back in, holding 2 breakfast sandwiches. "You're not going to eat, sir?" he asked, noticing mine still untouched. "I will," I said absently, "once the screaming starts." And oh, did it start. At exactly 7:05 a.m., my phone began ringing like it was possessed. First, Claire again, voice shrill through the speaker. "What the hell did you do, Lucas?" "Good morning to you too," I said, pretending to yawn. "How's your new start?" "Don't play games," she snapped. My cards don't work. None of them do. Even Dad's. Oh yeah, I interrupted. That's weird. Probably a system update. You know how banks are these days, always making updates. Especially when people misuse accounts for, say, funding boyfriends who wear my clothes. Silence. The kind of silence where you can hear someone's heartbeat trying to escape their chest. Then she whispered, "You saw?" "Oh, I saw," I said, sipping my coffee. "And heard. Lily's got quite the vocabulary. Boring ATM, that one's gonna stick with me. She's creative, I'll give her that." "Lucas, it's not what it looks like," she started, her voice breaking. "Claire," I said, calm as a winter storm. "If it were any less what it looks like, it would still look exactly the same." She started crying, the kind of theatrical sobs that might have worked on me once. "Not this time. I made a mistake," she said. "Yeah," I replied, and I just corrected it. Then I hung up. Marcos, who'd been pretending not to listen, muttered, "Oof, that sounded final." "Oh, it's just the pilot episode," I said. By 8:30, the chaos had spread like wildfire. Claire's mom left me a voicemail saying I'd humiliated the family and destroyed their dignity. I almost sent her a "you're welcome" text. Then Claire's dad called again, threatening to sue me for emotional distress. I told him to go ahead. After all, he could use his new hobby to fill his now very empty schedule. But the best part? The news about Lily's firing dropped right on cue. Diane texted me a picture of Lily in the Eastwood lobby, mid-scream, being escorted out by security. I zoomed in on her face, saved the photo, and set it as my new screensaver. Petty? Absolutely. Therapeutic? You have no idea. At 9 a.m., I sent Eddie, my accountant and oldest friend, a message, "Coffee at 10. Big news. Dress for chaos." He replied instantly, "You're scaring me already." When he showed up, I was still laughing. "What did you do?" he asked, sitting across from me, his eyes scanning my face for clues. "I froze the economy of the Thompson household," I said simply. He blinked. "You mean?" "Every card. Every line of credit. Their cash flow is now more extinct than Blockbuster." Eddie laughed so hard he spilled his coffee. "Jesus, man. You don't play around." "Why would I?" I said. "They played me. I'm just rewriting the rules." He shook his head. "You're dangerous when you're calm." "Calm?" I said, leaning back. "I'm just getting started. They wanted me to be their ATM? Fine. I'm closing the account." By noon, the Thompson family had gone from champagne brunchers to coupon clippers. The ripple effect was beautiful. Their credit reputation tanked so fast that by the end of the day, they couldn't even renew their gym memberships. Claire tried calling again that evening, but I let it ring. Then I sent one last message before I turned off my phone. "Dear Claire, system maintenance complete. Access permanently revoked. Love, your former ATM." I sat there, staring out the window as the city buzzed below me. Somewhere out there, the Thompsons were panicking, fighting, calling banks, wondering what went wrong. Me? I just smiled and whispered, "Welcome to poverty, population, you." And with that, I took a deep breath, exhaled slowly, and thought, round one goes to me. When I walked back into the house that evening, I had the kind of calm that scares people. The kind of calm you only get after watching your enemies try to call customer service about their own karma. My house smelled faintly like lavender and lies. The front door creaked just enough to announce my arrival, and there she was, Claire, standing in the hallway in a silk robe, hair perfectly styled, face glowing like she'd just finished a skincare ad shoot instead of, destroying our marriage. She froze when she saw me, like a kid caught sneaking cookies, except this cookie jar cost me 3 mortgages and half my sanity. "Why are you home early?" she asked, voice trembling just enough to sound innocent, but not enough to convince anyone over the age of 5. "I missed you," I said, grabbing a glass from the kitchen island and pouring water like I had all the time in the world. Because I did. I wasn't in a rush. She was. People in panic always are. She smiled weakly, clearly improvising. "I thought you were in Milan." "Yeah," I said, taking a sip, so did my assistant. "But flights change. Priorities shift." I gave her a smile so polite it could have been weaponized. Her eyes darted around, probably scanning for clues to how much I knew. I could practically see the gears turning in her head. Did he hear? Did he see? Did Lily tell him something? The silence stretched, and she started filling it with nervous chatter. About dinner plans, her yoga class, the grocery delivery, all the trivial noise people make when they're hiding something nuclear. Finally, I cut her off. "Claire," I said softly, setting the glass down. "How's the interior design project upstairs going?" Her body went still, completely still. Her lips parted, but no sound came out. She blinked twice, and if blinking were a sport, she'd have qualified for the Olympics right there. What project?" she stammered. "Oh, you know," I said, feigning casual interest. "The one where Lily plays tour guide to your new boyfriend. The guy wearing my shirt. The one she said was perfect for your new start. Ring a bell." If guilt had a color, it'd be whatever shade her face turned right then. Some mix between ghost white and oh shit gray. She tried to recover fast. "Lucas, it's not what you think." I smiled. "You're right. It's worse." She took a shaky step closer, clutching the robe tighter like it was going to protect her from the truth. "Please, let me explain." "I'd love that," I said, leaning against the counter. "But here's the thing. I recorded it. So, unless you're about to give me the director's commentary version, I already know how this episode ends." That one hit. Her shoulders sagged. She looked smaller, somehow. The fight drained out of her posture, replaced by desperation. Then came the tears, right on schedule. I watched them fall, slow and shiny. They used to move me once. Back when I believed she only cried when something truly hurt her. Now, they just looked like a strategy meeting. "Lucas, I made a mistake," she said, voice cracking like a bad radio signal. "It's been hard, okay? You're always working. You're distant. I felt lonely." "Lonely," I repeated, pretending to think. "So your solution was auditions?" "In our guest room." She flinched, sniffled, and muttered something about needing connection. That word, connection, I swear, if I had $1 for every time cheaters used it, I could fund a NASA mission to Mars. "You think you can control me because you pay for everything," she snapped suddenly, like flipping a switch. There it was, the anger, the stage of grief where the guilty stop crying and start projecting. I laughed. "Control you? Sweetheart, I couldn't even control the thermostat in this house without your mother's approval. You've been running the show for years. I just paid for the props." Her jaw tightened. "You don't get it. You use money to make people feel small." "Oh no," I said, stepping closer. "I use money to build empires. You and your family use it to buy attention." She folded her arms, chin high. "You think you can just cut me off? I'll survive. I'm not some damsel." I grinned. "No, you're not. You're just the co-star in your own downfall." As if on cue, her phone buzzed on the counter. She hesitated, then picked it up. One look at the screen, and her face fell. Probably Lily, probably chaos. She opened the message, and I watched her eyes widen. Then another notification. Then another, each one hitting like a brick. "Something's wrong with the cards," she murmured, scrolling frantically. "Mom's saying hers got declined. Dad too. Even Lily." I said, pretending to think. "Must be that system update I told everyone about." She looked up, suspicion cutting through the panic. "What did you do?" I shrugged, pouring another glass of water. "Just a little spring cleaning. Nothing major. Froze a few accounts. Terminated some freeloaders. You'd be amazed how fast a family shrinks when the credit lines do." Her jaw dropped. "You can't do that." "Oh, I can," I said, smiling wider. And I did. Turns out being the boring ATM has its perks, like having the power to shut down the withdrawals. She slammed her phone down. "This is insane, Lucas. You're punishing everyone because of..." "Because of what?" I interrupted sharply. "Because my wife turned my guest room into a honeymoon suite? Because her sister's parading men through my house? Because I've been funding an entire family that treats me like the help?" Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. The only sound in the room was the soft hum of the fridge, which, honestly, was doing better at cooling the situation than either of us. Then she said something that nearly made me laugh out loud. "You're being cruel." I raised an eyebrow. "Cruel?" "Sweetheart, I gave your father a business loan, your mother a Mercedes, your sister a job, and your cousins a place to live. Cruelty would have been letting them earn it." She looked at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her, which, to be fair, she didn't. The version of me she married was polite, soft-spoken, agreeable. The version standing before her had seen behind the curtain and burned it down. "Lucas," she said finally, voice breaking again, "we can fix this." "Oh, we're definitely fixing this," I said. "Just not the way you think." The room felt heavy. You could smell the tension, like perfume mixed with gasoline. She looked at me like she wanted to say something else, maybe apologize, maybe justify it all. But before she could, her phone buzzed again. She grabbed it, another message from Lily. This time, she read it out loud without thinking. He fired me. Lucas fired me. I'm ruined. I smiled so slowly she probably saw every muscle in my face move. Oh, I said lightly. Did I forget to mention that part? Her hand flew to her mouth. You didn't. I did, I said, sipping my water like it was a cocktail at a celebration. Called Diane at Eastwood myself. Told her to process Lily's termination first thing this morning. I believe the term is effective immediately. She stared at me, horrified. You're destroying lives. No, I corrected, leaning forward just enough for my voice to drop to a dangerous calm. I'm reclaiming mine. We stood there in silence for a long time. She looked at me like I was the villain in her story now, and maybe I was. But villains are just the heroes who stopped getting walked on. Finally, she whispered, "You'll regret this." I chuckled. Oh, I regret a lot of things. Marrying into your family tops the list. Everything after that's just a refund. She stormed off, slamming the bedroom door so hard a picture frame fell off the wall. I didn't even flinch. I just picked it up, straightened it, and muttered, "That's about the level of stability this marriage had anyway." Marcos poked his head in from the foyer, clearly having heard the drama. "Everything all right, sir?" "Depends on your definition of all right," I said. "The queen's upset, the cards are dead, and the peasants are revolting. So yeah, we're making progress." He snorted, trying not to laugh. "You want me to pick up dinner?" "Yeah," I said. "Something classy. Chinese takeout. It's divorce fuel." When he left, I sat on the edge of the couch, staring at the staircase. Upstairs, I could hear drawers opening and closing, muffled phone calls, the sound of panic. It should have felt vindicating. Instead, it felt empty. That's the thing about betrayal. It changes your taste for revenge. You expect fireworks, but all you get is quiet satisfaction with a hint of sadness. Still, I wasn't done. This was just round 2 in what I like to call the Great Thompson Financial Purge. Before heading to bed, I grabbed my phone and checked the recording one last time. Lily's voice echoed again. She deserves a peaceful space for her new start. I smiled faintly. "Oh, she's gonna get it," I whispered, right after the eviction notice. Then I turned off the lights, went upstairs, and passed our bedroom door. Claire was crying softly inside, probably realizing that silk robes don't cover everything. I paused for a second, almost out of habit, then kept walking to the guest room, the crime scene. I opened the door. The air still smelled faintly of her perfume. My shirt, my damn shirt, was on the chair. I picked it up, stared at it, then tossed it in the trash. "Congratulations," I muttered to no one in particular. "You just dressed your future in garbage." I left the room, shut the door behind me, and went to sleep on the couch. Not because I was exiled, but because that bed upstairs, it wasn't ours anymore. It was just another receipt in the bankruptcy of our marriage. Tomorrow, I told myself, the real cleanup begins. And this time, no one's getting away with new starts. There's a certain kind of satisfaction that only comes once in a man's life. The moment he sees Karma clock in for work wearing his face. For me, that moment came on a Friday morning, bright and beautiful, the kind of day when normal people take their dogs for walks or grab bagels with extra cream cheese. I, however, had an entirely different agenda. I was on my way to Eastwood Design Group, where my dear sister-in-law Lily was about to learn the most important interior design principle of all: never decorate your career with someone else's money. The drive there felt ceremonial. Marcos had jazz on the radio, and I was sipping coffee like a man heading to church to witness a baptism. Except this baptism involved unemployment paperwork and a security escort. Marcos glanced at me through the rearview mirror. "You look very peaceful today, sir." "I am," I said, tapping the rim of my coffee cup. "Today's about closure." "Closure?" "Yeah. Closing accounts, closing doors, closing mouths that should have stayed shut." He grinned, then wisely stayed quiet for the rest of the ride. When we pulled up to Eastwood, the building gleamed under the morning sun like a cathedral of glass and false ambition. I built half of it, literally. My company's logistics branch funded the materials for their expansion. Every inch of that lobby screamed, "Thank you, Lucas Merrick." but I was done donating to ungrateful art majors who thought manifesting was a business plan. I walked through the revolving doors and greeted the receptionist, a nervous 20-something who looked like she'd rather swallow her stapler than stop me. "Good morning, Mr. Merrick," she said, forcing a smile. "You're early. Early bird gets the scandal," I said smoothly, striding toward the elevator. On the third floor, the air was thick with coffee, gossip, and fluorescent lighting. People whispered when they saw me, their voices dipping low. Everyone knew why I was there. You don't call HR at dawn unless someone's career is about to take a nosedive. Diane, the HR director, met me at the door to her office. She looked both nervous and excited, like a firefighter about to witness the blaze she didn't start. "She's here," she whispered. "We called her in for a mandatory staff meeting." "Perfect," I said, straightening my blazer. "Let's make this quick. I've got other souls to reclaim today." We stepped into the main workspace. Lily was standing by the coffee machine, phone in hand, wearing sunglasses indoors and a fur coat that screamed influencer discount rack. She spotted me and froze mid-scroll. "Lucas," she said, her tone high-pitched and fake sweet. "What are you doing here?" I smiled. "Came to do some interior redesign. Thought I'd start with personnel." Her eyes narrowed. "What's that supposed to mean?" Before I could answer, Diane stepped forward and handed her a folder. "Lily Thompson, this is your termination letter. Effective immediately." The words hung in the air like confetti at a funeral. Every intern, assistant, and designer in the room went dead silent. Lily blinked, then laughed. "This is a joke, right? You can't fire me. I'm family." "Correction," I said, hands in pockets, "was family. HR's already processed it. Your email's deactivated, your card's canceled, and your desk will be cleared by noon. Congratulations, you're officially free to pursue other creative outlets, like explaining to your Instagram followers why you're suddenly unemployed." Her jaw dropped. "You can't do this," she shrieked, her voice cracking. I tilted my head. "Sweetheart, I can rebuild this entire company from scratch. You think I can't revoke a job recommendation?" She turned to Diane, desperate. "You're really going through with this?" Diane gave her the kind of sympathetic smile you reserve for people about to learn what unemployment tastes like. "It's already finalized." Lily's face went red. "You'll regret this," she spat. "You have no idea who you're messing with." I grinned. "That's funny. I was just about to say the same thing to you 3 days ago, right before I froze your credit card." That got a few gasps from nearby employees. Lily's rage cracked open into panic. You did that." "Sure did. Family budget cuts. You were expensive and underperforming. Happens all the time." She lunged forward like she was about to slap me, but 2 security guards stepped in, big guys, built like human refrigerators. One of them said politely, "Ma'am, please step back." Her voice hit that shrill register only small dogs and the devil can hear. "I'll sue you. You can't humiliate me like this." I leaned in close enough that she could see the calm in my eyes. "You don't have the funds for a lawsuit, Lily." I made sure of that. Then I turned to the guards. "Escort Miss Thompson out, please. Make sure she doesn't take any company property, especially not the stapler. She looks like the type to steal one out of spite." As they led her away, she screamed something about karma. I smiled. "Tell her she's late for work." Once she was gone, the office buzzed again, louder than before. Everyone was pretending to get back to work, but I could see them sneaking glances at me. Some looked terrified. Others, mostly the ones Lily had bullied, looked quietly thrilled. Diane exhaled like she'd just run a marathon. "Well," she said, "that was dramatic." "Dramatic?" I said, grabbing her office espresso machine and making myself a shot. "That was closure served hot with a side of justice." She laughed nervously. "You really don't mess around, do you?" "Not anymore," I said. "People mistake kindness for weakness. I'm just adjusting their definitions." I left Eastwood with my espresso in hand, stepping out into the morning sunlight like a man who'd just set the world right again. Marcos was waiting by the car, holding my phone. "Sir, Mrs. Merrick called 10 times. I smirked. "And I bet she texted too." "Dozens," he said, handing me the screen. The messages were gold. "Claire, what did you do to Lily?" Then another, "You're going too far, Lucas." And finally, "If you loved me, you'd stop this." I typed back one line. "If I loved you, I wouldn't have started." Then I pocketed the phone. We drove back toward the city, and I asked Marcos to take the long route. I wanted to enjoy this. The breeze through the open window, the sound of distant horns, the city waking up. It felt like my life rebooting. At a stoplight, Marcos hesitated. Sir, can I ask something? Shoot, don't you ever feel bad about all this? I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. No, Marcos. Feeling bad is for people who did something wrong. I'm just balancing the books. When we got back to my office, Eddie was already there waiting, sipping from a paper cup like he owned the place. You're trending, he said, waving his phone. Excuse me. He turned the screen toward me. Some employee at Eastwood had filmed Lily's meltdown and posted it online. The caption read, "When your brother-in-law is your boss and your karma collector." It had over 50,000 views already. Eddie was laughing so hard, he could barely breathe. You're basically the stock market version of Batman. Great, I muttered. All I need now is a theme song. He clapped me on the shoulder. You're enjoying this way too much. Enjoying? I said. Eddie, I'm healing. This is therapy, just cheaper. He sat down, still shaking his head. You realize this video's gonna ruin Lily's career, right? Perfect, I said. I'd hate for her to think she could rebuild before Saturday. Eddie chuckled. You know what they say, revenge is best served viral. The rest of the day rolled by like a montage from a dark comedy. Claire kept calling. Her parents sent long, guilt-tripping texts about family unity. And Lily spammed me with threats that autocorrect kept softening. You'll rue this day doesn't hit as hard when it's followed by sent from my iPhone. By evening, I'd had enough. I closed my laptop, grabbed my keys, and told Marcos to take me to the waterfront bar Eddie and I liked. When we walked in, the bartender grinned. The usual? Make it double, I said, sliding into a booth. Eddie joined me, raising his glass. To Lily Thompson, may she rest in unemployment. I laughed, clinking my glass against his. To Karma, may it continue doing overtime. He leaned forward, voice dropping. So what's next? You've humiliated the sister. You've frozen the money. You've burned the bridge. What's left? I stared into my drink for a long second before answering. The family summit. Tomorrow morning. Their mansion. I'm calling it Fire Lily Friday, Aftermath Edition. Eddie whistled. You're serious. As a tax audit, I said. It's time they learn what accountability looks like without my credit card attached. He laughed, shook his head, and finished his drink. You've changed, man. Good, I said, finishing mine too. The old me got cheated on. The new me gets even. We sat there watching the sunset over the water, the city glowing orange and gold in the distance. For the first time in months, I felt calm. Not numb. Not angry. Just focused. Tomorrow, I'd walk into that mansion and show them that the man they thought was their ATM was actually the one writing the foreclosure notice. As we left the bar, Marcos held the car door open and asked, So, sir, was today productive? I grinned, slipping inside. Marcos, today was art. And as the city lights blurred past the window, I thought to myself, they wanted a villain. Fine, I'll give them one they'll never forget. There's something poetic about watching a family of leeches realize the blood supply's gone dry. Friday night ended with me sleeping like a baby, a vindictive, smug baby who'd just set the world right again. By the time Saturday morning rolled around, my phone looked like it had been through a digital hurricane. Missed calls from Claire, her mom, her dad, even her yoga instructor. Apparently, they wanted to discuss energy imbalance, which I assume is code for we can't afford brunch. I brewed my coffee, leaned back in my chair, and scrolled through the chaos like a man flipping through fan mail. The messages came in waves. Claire's mom, you've embarrassed us. How could you freeze our accounts in public? Her dad, you'll regret this, son. Family means loyalty. Lily, you destroyed my career. You'll pay for this. And Claire, Claire, please stop. We can fix this. I can fix this. I sipped my coffee and muttered, Oh, sweetheart, you're about 6 updates too late. See, when people get used to eating steak on someone else's dime, even instant ramen feels like punishment. But me? I was just getting started. Saturday was going to be my masterpiece, the day the Thompson dynasty crumbled faster than a bad souffle. Around 10 a.m., I met up with Eddie at the Copper Mug, our go-to bar for scheming and sarcasm. He was sitting at the counter, laptop open, typing furiously. Morning, Mr. Annihilation, he said without looking up. Morning, Mr. Numbers, I replied, sliding onto the stool beside him. Tell me you have good news. Oh, I've got something better, he said, spinning the laptop around. Remember your father-in-law's construction company? East Shore Developments. I nodded. The one he brags about like it built the pyramids? Yeah, that one, Eddie said, grinning. They've got a cash hole the size of the Grand Canyon. About 15 million missing in liquid assets. Guess who funded half of their last 3 projects? I blinked. You're kidding. Nope, he said, pointing to the numbers on the screen. Wire transfers from your joint account with Claire. They used your money to finance half-built luxury homes, bribe inspectors, and cover payroll. And get this, Claire signed off on every single transfer. For a moment, I just sat there. The air went quiet, like even the bar stopped to eavesdrop. Then I laughed, loud, hard, nearly choking on my coffee. They were using my money to build their empire and cheat me with marble floors? That's not just betrayal. That's architecture-level arrogance. Eddie smirked. You really know how to pick families. Hey, I said, wiping tears of laughter from my eyes. I'm married into one. I didn't adopt the species. He chuckled. So what's the next move? I leaned in. We're going nuclear. I want every investor, every supplier, every contractor they've ever scammed to know exactly how deep this rabbit hole goes. If they thought losing credit cards was bad, wait until they can't afford electricity. Eddie grinned. Man, you're like if Wall Street had feelings. Wrong, I said, finishing my drink. I'm like if karma had a spreadsheet. By noon, Eddie and I were knee-deep in Operation Family Meltdown. He handled the financials. I handled the flair. Step 1. Expose the construction company's dirty laundry. Step 2. Make sure every phone in the Thompson mansion was ringing off the hook by sunset. I started with an email blast. Discreet, professional, devastating. To whom it may concern, it began. It has come to my attention that East Shore Developments has been engaging in unauthorized use of funds sourced from personal accounts belonging to Lucas Merrick, founder of Merrick Logistics. I CC'd every major investor and supplier they'd ever worked with. Then, for fun, I BCC'd Claire. Eddie watched me type, shaking his head. You're terrifyingly calm right now. Calm, I said, clicking send. I'm just warming up. We spent the afternoon in my office, tracking the fallout in real time. Calls started coming in, first confused, then furious. Investors demanding refunds. Contractors threatening lawsuits. By 3 p.m., the Thompson family business line had been disconnected, which was corporate speak for the panic screams got too loud. Eddie leaned back in his chair, laughing. You realize you've started a civil war in Long Island, right? I smiled. Good. Maybe they'll finally learn teamwork. At 4 p.m., my phone rang. Caller ID, Claire's dad. I put it on speaker and mouthed, "Watch this," to Eddie. Lucas, he barked the second I answered. What the hell have you done? I sipped my drink. Good afternoon to you too, Frank. How's business? You're ruining us, he roared. Do you know what you've started? Oh, absolutely, I said. It's called accountability. You should try it sometime. Heard it's trending. You think this is funny? Not really, I said. I think it's educational. He tried to switch tactics. Lucas, your family. We can work this out. Just tell the investors there's been a misunderstanding. I chuckled. Oh, there's definitely been a misunderstanding, Frank. You misunderstood the part where my money was mine. Damn it, boy, he shouted. You'll regret this. I smiled, leaning back. You keep saying that, but so far, it's been pretty entertaining. Then I hung up. Eddie clapped slowly. That was art. Thanks, I said, standing up. But we're not done. It's time for dessert. By sunset, I had Marcos drive me to the Thompson mansion. You could practically smell the panic from the driveway. Expensive cars lined up outside, but I knew half of them were leased. The front lawn looked immaculate, as always, perfection built on debt. Claire opened the door before I even knocked. Her mascara was smudged, her hair messy, and her silk robe had been downgraded to an oversized sweatshirt. Lucas, she said, eyes pleading. Please, you're destroying my family. I'm just rearranging the furniture, I said, brushing past her. You should appreciate the design work. Her mother appeared from the dining room, clutching a glass of white wine like it was a life vest. How dare you humiliate us like this? She cried. The bank called this morning. Our accounts, our credit. You've made a mockery of this family. I raised an eyebrow. No, ma'am. You did that yourselves. I just provided the mirror. Then Frank stormed in, face red, hands shaking. You think you're some kind of hero? No, I said calmly. I'm just the guy who stopped funding your delusions. He took a step closer. You won't get away with this. Oh, I will, I said. Because unlike you, I actually read the contracts I sign. Every cent that left my account for East Shore was under the clause of revocable funding. You know what that means? It means I can call back every dime, every car, every house renovation. And the best part, I smiled. It's all legal. The silence that followed was pure music. Claire's mom dropped her wine glass. Frank's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Claire's eyes filled with tears, but I could tell they weren't from guilt anymore. They were from realization. The empire they'd built on my generosity was collapsing, and I was the one bulldozing it. You'll destroy everything, Claire's mom wailed. Not everything, I said. Just everything you never earned. Lily stormed in next, phone in hand, screaming. You got me fired. I was escorted out like a criminal. I gave her my best fake sympathy look. Yeah, I heard. Terrible, huh? You should probably update your resume. Oh wait, you'll need Wi-Fi for that. You're evil, she yelled. No, I said, smirking. I'm efficient. The room exploded into overlapping voices. Claire crying, her mom shrieking, Frank pacing and swearing, Lily threatening lawsuits. It sounded like a reality show audition tape from hell. I just stood there, hands in pockets, watching the chaos unfold. When they finally ran out of breath, I spoke quietly. You know, I used to wonder what it would take to make this family listen. Turns out, poverty has great acoustics. Frank glared at me. You think you've won? I shrugged. I think I've restored balance. You built your entire lives on the illusion that I'd never fight back. Well, surprise. Claire took a step forward, her voice shaking. Lucas, please. I know we hurt you, but you're crossing a line. No, Claire, I said softly. You crossed it. I'm just repainting it in bold red so you can see it next time. Her tears fell, but I didn't flinch. She wasn't crying for me. She was crying for the lifestyle. For the parties, the vacations, the designer bags. For the fact that her boring ATM finally closed shop. When I turned to leave, Lily shouted after me. You'll pay for this, Lucas. I paused at the door, looked over my shoulder, and smiled. Actually, you won't. Your cards are still frozen. Then I walked out to the sound of chaos. Voices shouting, glass breaking, phones buzzing with bank alerts. It was the soundtrack of justice, and I had front row seats. Marcos was waiting in the car, eyebrows raised. That bad, he asked. I slid into the seat, sighing with satisfaction. Worse, I said. They're arguing over who gets to call the lawyer first. He chuckled. You're enjoying this too much. Enjoying, I said, looking out the window as the mansion grew smaller in the distance. Marcos, I'm just getting started. The city lights flickered ahead, and I smiled. Operation Family Meltdown wasn't just successful, it was biblical. And tomorrow? Tomorrow was cleanup day. By Saturday afternoon, I decided there was only one thing left to do before wrapping up my week-long revenge tour, stage an official family meeting. The Thompsons needed a front row seat to their own extinction, and I was feeling generous enough to offer complimentary admission. Besides, nothing says poetic justice like watching a room full of self-proclaimed elites melt down while pretending to have dignity. The venue? Their mansion, of course, the same overpriced temple of hypocrisy I helped pay for, filled with imported marble, chandeliers shaped like insecurity, and furniture that screamed, look, we're important. I told Marcos to drive me there around 4, just late enough to make them stew in anxiety. I wanted them nervous. I wanted them hungry for explanations I wasn't going to give. As we pulled into the circular driveway, I saw all their cars parked neatly. Or, in the case of Lily's BMW, crookedly, because of course it was. I stepped out in my best charcoal suit, no tie, sleeves rolled slightly, a look that said corporate executioner. Marcos stayed in the car, shaking his head. You sure about this, boss? Marcos, I said, buttoning my jacket. I've been sure since the day I found a stranger wearing my shirt. The front door opened before I could knock. Claire's mother stood there, eyes puffy from crying, mascara smeared like a raccoon who'd lost a lawsuit. Lucas, she said, voice quivering. Please, let's not do this. Oh, we're doing this, I said, walking past her. Consider this the shareholder meeting you never wanted. The family was gathered in the living room. Claire, her parents, Lily, and even the freeloading cousins. all sitting there like a broke royal family. Claire's father, Frank, stood up as soon as he saw me. His voice carried that same tone he used when he'd once bragged about mentoring me in business, a tone that aged about as well as unrefrigerated milk. "Lucas," he started, puffing his chest. "We need to talk. This vendetta of yours." "Vendetta?" I interrupted, sitting down in one of their ridiculous gold-trimmed chairs. "No, Frank. A vendetta would imply emotion. This is just math. You took what wasn't yours, and I adjusted the balance sheet." Claire sat on the edge of the couch, wringing her hands. She looked exhausted, like someone who'd spent the last 48 hours realizing there's no cashback policy for bad decisions. "Lucas, please," she said softly. "We can fix this. Just tell the investors there's been a mistake." I raised an eyebrow. "There was a mistake, Claire. You married me thinking I wouldn't find out." Lily scoffed, flipping her hair. "God, you're so dramatic. All of this over some money? You're pathetic." I smiled. "Funny, coming from someone whose entire career was built on my recommendations. How's unemployment treating you, Lily? Heard LinkedIn's got a new, recently fired filter." Her face turned crimson. "You?" Frank cut her off with a hand gesture. "Enough. Lucas, you can't destroy this family. Think about your reputation. What will people say when they find out you ruined your in-laws?" "Oh, they'll probably say, 'Finally,'" I said casually. "You think reputation matters to me now? I spent years funding your fantasies, your cars, your vacation homes, all while you treated me like a walking receipt. I'm not the villain here. I'm just the accountant closing the books." Claire's mother sniffled dramatically, as if crying could resurrect her Amex. "You're cruel," she whispered. "You've humiliated us." I leaned back. "No, ma'am. You humiliated yourselves when you forgot who was paying the bills." Then I pulled out my phone, tapped the screen, and projected the latest bank alert onto their giant smart TV. Because why not use their overpriced tech for entertainment? The display showed all their accounts, every card still frozen, every transaction declined. I could practically hear their egos deflating in real time. "Lucas, stop," Claire said, standing up. "You're making a scene." "Making a scene?" I laughed. "Claire, your family made a whole Broadway production out of using me. I'm just hosting the final act." Her father's face turned beet red. "You ungrateful punk. I gave you access to my business network." "Oh yeah," I said. "That's the same network that laundered my money through shell projects, right? Don't worry. I already sent copies of those transactions to your investors. You should be getting some fun phone calls soon." His jaw dropped. "You wouldn't dare." I smirked. "Frank, at this point, I dare professionally." Claire's mom looked ready to faint. One of the cousins, I think it was the one who'd once tried to start a luxury candle business with my money, muttered, "This is insane." "Insane?" I said, standing up. "Insane is convincing yourself you're entitled to someone else's success. Insane is building your empire with my signature on the checks. What I'm doing is perfectly sane. Necessary, even." Claire stepped closer. "Lucas, I know I hurt you." I laughed bitterly. "You don't even know the half of it. I built you a life, Claire. And you built an escape plan. I trusted you with everything, my money, my house, my future. And you turned around and tried to replace me with some guy who can't afford his own wardrobe." Her lip trembled. "I didn't mean for it to go that far." "Then what did you mean, exactly?" I said, my voice sharper now. "To cheat emotionally? To play house with your sister and some kid in my guest room? You had every privilege, and you still chose stupid." She didn't answer. The room went quiet except for the faint hum of the TV still displaying their financial doom. Finally, Lily couldn't help herself. "You're enjoying this, aren't you?" she spat. "You're getting off on watching us suffer." I looked her dead in the eye. "Lily, if watching a parasite learn it can't survive without a host counts as enjoyment, then yeah, I'm having a blast." That one hit hard. Her mother gasped. Frank cursed under his breath. Claire turned away, tears streaming down her face. But me? I was done crying months ago. I walked over to the table, pulled out a manila envelope, and placed it in front of Frank. "Inside," I said, "you'll find termination notices for the joint accounts, ownership transfers, and copies of every illegal transaction involving my funds. Keep them. Frame them. Hell, hang them next to the family portrait you took in Bora Bora, the one I paid for." Frank picked it up with shaky hands. "You think this ends with you walking out?" "It already ended," I said. You just didn't notice when it happened. Claire tried one last desperate plea. Lucas, please. Don't do this. We can rebuild. I turned to her, my expression flat. Rebuild? Claire, you burned the foundation. You and your family treated me like an investment that would never expire. Well, congratulations. You've matured, and the yield is zero. Her eyes welled again. I never stopped loving you. I sighed. Maybe, but you definitely stopped respecting me. And without respect, love's just a Hallmark card for guilt. For a long moment, no one spoke. It was just the sound of expensive silence, the kind that fills big, empty houses when the money runs out. I checked my watch. Well, this was fun, but I've got better things to do than babysit remorse. I started for the door. That's when Frank shouted, "You'll regret this, Lucas. We'll fight back. You can't take everything from us." I paused at the doorway and turned just enough to meet his glare. "Frank," I said, voice calm and deliberate. "You're broke. Your business is under investigation, and your family's one bad Yelp review away from total irrelevance. The only thing left to take from you is your Wi-Fi password." Then, because I'm not completely heartless, I gave him one last line. "But don't worry, I left you your pride. It's small, but it's portable." I walked out to Marcos waiting by the car. He looked at me and whistled low. "That bad?" "Worse," I said, sliding into the seat. "They're currently auditioning for the role of most miserable family on Long Island." He chuckled as he pulled away. "So what now, boss?" "Now," I said, watching the mansion fade in the rearview mirror. "Now I let gravity do its thing. When you build your life on my money and lies, you don't need me to destroy you. You'll collapse all on your own." As we merged back onto the highway, my phone buzzed, Eddie's name flashing across the screen. I answered. "Please tell me you're calling with good news," I said. "Oh, better," he said, his voice smug. "Just got word. 3 of Frank's major investors pulled out. They're demanding audits. And guess what? East Shore's officially suspended operations pending investigation." I laughed so hard Marcos had to slow down. "You're kidding." "Nope," Eddie said. "You lit the fuse, my friend. The whole Thompson Kingdom's about to go kaboom." "Good," I said, grinning. "It's about time they learn what bankruptcy smells like." We hung up, and I leaned back, watching the skyline approach. For the first time in a long time, I felt free, like I'd been carrying their weight for years and finally dropped it. The Thompsons could scream, cry, or threaten all they wanted. The show was over. "Marcos," I said quietly. "Yes, sir?" "Remind me to send flowers to their house next week." He frowned. "Flowers? After all that?" "Yeah," I said, smirking. "A nice note, too. Something classy. In memory of your fortune." He laughed so hard he nearly missed the exit. And me? I just stared out the window, the city lights reflecting in the glass, and thought to myself, they wanted war. They got a corporate apocalypse. And the best part? I didn't even break a sweat. By Monday morning, I was convinced karma had officially clocked in under my payroll. The sun was out, the air was crisp, and for the first time in months, I didn't wake up to the smell of anxiety. I woke up to victory, black coffee, jazz music, and the sweet sound of Eddie's text. "We found something. Meet me at the office." I grabbed my jacket, adjusted my cuffs, and smiled at my reflection. My eyes looked sharper, lighter, dangerous in the right kind of way, like a man who'd been wronged and came back with spreadsheets instead of bullets. Claire used to say I looked too corporate. Funny, corporate is exactly how I destroyed her family. Marcos was already waiting outside with the car, sipping coffee. "Morning, boss. You look happy." "I am happy," I said, sliding in. "Today's Discovery Day?" He raised an eyebrow. "Discovery Day? Like pirates?" "Exactly," I said. "Except instead of buried treasure, we're unearthing stupid." He laughed and pulled out of the driveway. When I got to my office, Eddie was pacing in front of the window, grinning like he'd just found gold in the stock market. He had that look, the kind accountants get when they've just uncovered financial blasphemy. "Took you long enough," he said, tossing me a folder. "Remember how we thought your in-laws were just using your money to fund construction projects?" "Yeah," I said, flipping it open. "Turns out they were doing worse." He grinned wider. "So much worse. Inside were bank statements, transaction logs, emails, the whole buffet of betrayal." Eddie pointed to one line after another. "You see these? Transfers from Claire's father's company. Money funneled into private accounts under different names. Here's the twist, the recipient of those funds." He paused dramatically. Claire's little boyfriend, Dylan Ross. For a moment, I just stared at the name. Dylan Ross. The same human version of a midlife crisis I'd caught upstairs in my guest room. I looked at Eddie. You're telling me they were laundering my money to pay for her boyfriend's lifestyle? Eddie nodded, visibly enjoying this. Yep. Trips, hotel stays, designer clothes, a down payment on a condo in Brooklyn. It's all here. Every single purchase was made with your funds. I blinked. I built their love nest. I'm basically their interior designer. Eddie burst out laughing. You really can't make this stuff up. I leaned back in my chair, exhaling through a laugh. Unbelievable. I paid for the guy who wore my shirt. The same kid who looked at my house and said, "This'll work. I should send him an invoice." Eddie shook his head, still chuckling. Want to know the best part? Sure, I said, almost afraid to ask. The condo's under your name, he said, trying not to grin. Claire used your authorization to finalize the down payment. Technically, it's your property. I stared at him. So let me get this straight. They used my money to buy my mistress's boyfriend a condo, and they accidentally put it under my name. Exactly. For a second, I didn't know whether to scream, laugh, or nominate myself for the Guinness World Record in marital stupidity. Then I laughed so hard my stomach hurt. Oh, Eddie, this is the dumbest heist in history. They robbed me and handed me the deed. Eddie grinned. You're welcome. I stood up, stretching my shoulders. All right then, let's clean house. Literally. Meaning, I'm selling the condo, I said, pulling out my phone. And I don't mean quietly. I'm listing it under market value, all cash. I want that thing gone faster than their credibility. Eddie's grin turned wicked. Poetic. Exactly, I said, typing fast. If they thought they could build a future off me, let them watch it get sold on Zillow. He laughed again. You're scary when you're calm. I'm not calm, I said. I'm caffeinated and vengeful. There's a difference. Within an hour, I had a realtor friend on the line, a shark in heels named Vanessa who owed me a favor. Lucas, I can move property faster than a divorce lawyer, she said confidently. Perfect, I replied. I've got a condo in Brooklyn, price to sell. And if anyone asks, don't mention my name. You got it. Send the listing details. Already did, I said. And Vanessa? Yes. Make sure it goes to someone wholesome. I want karma to live there. By the time I hung up, the condo was listed, the paperwork processed, and the vultures were circling. That's the thing about New York real estate. You don't even need to hang a for sale sign before people start offering kidneys and cash. Eddie was still flipping through documents, shaking his head. I'll never understand how these people thought they could get away with this. Simple, I said. They thought I'd never check. They thought loyal husband meant lazy accountant. They mistook love for blindness. He closed the folder and looked at me. And now, I said, leaning back, I'm the guy selling their dreams to retirees. He laughed, but I wasn't done. Oh, and send copies of those transactions to the IRS. Let them handle the rest. I've done enough charity work. His eyes widened. You're reporting them? Eddie, I said, smiling. It's not revenge if the government does half the work for you. He howled with laughter. Jesus, Lucas, you're diabolical. Please, I said. Jesus forgives. I itemize. By that evening, Vanessa called back. You're not going to believe this, she said. The condo sold. Full cash offer from an elderly couple from Vermont. They said it reminded them of their honeymoon spot. I chuckled. Perfect. A place built on lies, now filled with love. That's poetic irony right there. She laughed. Want me to wire the payment to your primary account? No, I said. Transfer it to my new one. The one they don't know exists. When I hung up, Eddie raised an eyebrow. You really just flipped their love nest in a day. Eddie, I said, standing up, I told you. I don't do slow revenge. That night, I poured myself a drink and sat on my balcony, watching the Manhattan skyline glow. Below me, the city buzzed with life, cab horns, chatter, laughter. And somewhere across town, I imagined Claire and her family staring at each other, wondering how everything unraveled so fast. I checked my phone. A text from Claire blinked on the screen. We need to talk. I typed back, sure. Bring your lawyer. And a calculator. Seconds later, 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. Classic. I smiled, finished my drink, and leaned back in my chair. The air was cold, sharp, and honest. Everything my marriage wasn't. For years, I believed that success would protect me from betrayal, that providing everything meant I was safe from losing it. Turns out, the only thing I needed to feel powerful was the word no. No more saving people who drown on purpose. No more financing ungrateful dreams. No more pretending loyalty exists where greed lives rent-free. Around midnight, my phone buzzed again. This time it was Eddie. "You up?" "Yeah," I said. "What now?" "You're gonna love this," he said, laughing. "Your father-in-law just called me. He's begging for a meeting. Apparently, word's gotten out. Their investors pulled out. The bank froze their lines. And guess who's under audit for fraud?" I smirked. "Let me guess. East Shore Developments." Bingo. I took a deep breath and let the satisfaction settle. "Perfect," I said quietly. "Let them drown in their own paperwork." "You're cold, man," Eddie said, still laughing. "Not cold," I replied. "Just done being their heater." After we hung up, I sat there for a long time, thinking about everything that led to this moment. The lies, the arrogance, the manipulation. They thought they'd built a fortress around themselves, but they forgot who poured the concrete. The next morning, I drove past the Brooklyn condo one last time. A moving truck was outside, and the elderly couple I'd sold it to waved at me without knowing who I was. The woman smiled, clutching a box labeled Memories. I smiled back, rolled down the window, and said, "Welcome home." She beamed. "Thank you, young man. The previous owner left some designer shirts. Would you like them back?" I laughed. "Keep them. They belong to a ghost." As I drove away, the sun broke through the clouds, and I swear it felt like the city itself was winking at me. For the first time since Claire's betrayal, I wasn't angry. I wasn't bitter. I was free. You know that feeling when a storm finally ends, and the air smells like rain and second chances? That's what peace feels like, except mine came with a profit margin. Back at my office, I texted Eddie, "Condo sold. Thompson's broke. Justice delivered." He replied, "Damn, man. You're unstoppable. What now?" I stared out my window at the skyline and typed back, "Now? I rest. Let karma handle the rest." I slipped my phone into my pocket and smiled to myself. They'd built a kingdom out of my generosity, and now they were watching it crumble with their bare hands. And the best part? I never had to raise my voice. Just my standards. It was Discovery Day, all right. And the discovery wasn't just about where my money went. It was about where my peace had been hiding all along. You ever have one of those moments where you realize life just handed you the microphone, and everyone who doubted you is about to get an earful they can't interrupt? That was me that Thursday morning. I didn't plan to go public. I didn't schedule some dramatic TV interview or hire a PR team in black suits. No, I did something much better. I let the paperwork talk. Eddie called it the press conference that wasn't. And to this day, I can't think of a better title. It started at 9:47 a.m. when Eddie burst into my office holding his laptop like it was on fire. "They're done," he said, panting like he'd sprinted up 20 flights of stairs. I raised an eyebrow. "Define done." He spun the screen around. "Done as in, the documents we leaked last night have gone viral. Their financial skeletons are out there dancing on the internet." I blinked. "Viral? Viral," he repeated. "As in, trending on 3 different business blogs and 2 gossip sites. Hashtag ThompsonGate is number 6 on Twitter right now." That's when I leaned back in my chair and did what any rational man would do after watching his ex-in-law's empire implode. I laughed until I couldn't breathe. Eddie was grinning, half proud, half terrified. "You realize you've basically canceled a whole family?" I wiped a tear from my eye. No, Eddie. I didn't cancel them. I just refunded my investment. See, the documents weren't technically leaked. They were strategically uploaded, an elegant blend of truth and timing. Eddie had discovered years' worth of tax inconsistencies, ghost contracts, and shady shell companies under the Thompson umbrella. I didn't need to write an exposé or stand at a podium. I just forwarded everything to the right inboxes, journalists, auditors, and that one blogger who made a career out of calling out fake millionaires. By mid-morning, East Shore Developments had gone from Long Island's family-run success story to financial dumpster fire. The headlines were savage. From riches to red flags. The family that built houses on sand. My favorite was from a business site that simply read, "The Thompsons, a masterclass in how to ruin a legacy in 48 hours. Eddie leaned against my desk, scrolling. "You've got to see this one." They found a photo of Frank at a groundbreaking ceremony and captioned it, Turns out, he was digging his own grave. I snorted. Poetic journalism at its finest. He nodded. They're getting hammered in the comments. Someone even started a GoFundMe called Help the Thompsons Pay Their Taxes. Beautiful, I said. Tragic, but beautiful. And it was, in a Shakespearean, corporate kind of way. You couldn't script it better. A week ago, they were sipping champagne, bragging about expansion plans. Now they were hiding from reporters, their phones blowing up with investor rage. But I didn't want chaos. I wanted closure. So, I decided to make one phone call, not to Claire, not to her parents. To the one person I'd left out of the loop, the board chair of East Shore Developments, an older gentleman named Richard Phelps who'd always been civil to me, even when his colleagues weren't. He answered on the second ring, voice weary. Lucas. Richard, I said warmly. Rough week. He sighed heavily. You could say that. My inbox looks like a murder scene. I imagine it does, I said. But you should know, I didn't do this to destroy you. I did it to disinfect the company. I figured, he said quietly. Frank was always playing fast and loose with other people's money. I told him that would bite him someday. And now he's the buffet, I said. Richard chuckled despite himself. So what's your endgame here, son? You've already won. Endgame, I said, glancing out the window at the skyline. No endgame. Just cleanup. I want what's mine, nothing more. The rest? Let the courts handle it. There was a pause. Then he said, You know, there's a part of me that respects what you did. It was ruthless, but surgical. Appreciate it, I said. I've had practice. Marriage teaches precision. He laughed softly. Well, if it's any consolation, Frank's been suspended pending investigation. The board's already drafting the paperwork. I grinned. Music to my ears. When I hung up, Eddie was watching me with that look. The one that said, You're enjoying this too much. Don't judge me, I said, smiling. After years of passive-aggressive brunches with these people, this feels like therapy. Expensive therapy, he muttered, holding up a printout of their frozen accounts. Worth every penny. Around noon, my phone rang again, an unfamiliar number. Against my better judgment, I answered. Lucas, a voice rasped. It was Frank. I almost laughed. Frank, to what do I owe this honor? Shouldn't you be in a meeting with your crisis manager? He ignored the jab. Please, can we talk? Man to man. Man to man. I said, chuckling. Frank, the last time we talked man to man, you were bragging about your summer home I paid for. Look, he said, desperation leaking into his tone. Things got out of hand. Mistakes were made. But this is killing us. Killing you? I asked, leaning back. Frank, I'm not killing anyone. I just stopped being your donor. You made us look like fools. No, Frank, I said calmly. You made me look like a fool. I just changed the camera angle. There was a long pause. Then, softly, what do you want? Nothing, I said. Nothing at all. Because for once, I have everything I need. Peace and proof. Lucas, goodbye, Frank. I hung up before he could finish. Eddie shook his head. Cold. Efficient, I corrected. Besides, he needed that silence more than my words. By late afternoon, the story had officially hit mainstream news. One of the anchors even quoted a line from my leaked email. No one destroys you without your permission. They called it the quote of the week. Eddie nudged me. Look at you, philosopher of revenge. I smirked. Hey, if Aristotle had Wi-Fi, he'd do the same thing. Then came the texts. Former colleagues, investors, even acquaintances I hadn't heard from in years, all congratulating me. Finally, someone took down those pompous frauds. Legend move, Lucas. Drinks on me next time you're downtown. The validation felt nice, but honestly, it was secondary. The real satisfaction was knowing I'd turned their silence. The years of dismissive looks, the backhanded comments, the family dinners where I was the boring husband, into a public echo chamber of accountability. At one point, my assistant knocked on the door. Mr. Merrick, there are reporters outside asking for a statement. I laughed. Tell them this is my official statement. I let the math speak. Short and savage, Eddie said. You're becoming a quote machine. Add that one to my Wikipedia page, I said dryly. Still, curiosity got the better of me. Around 5, I stepped outside the building. Sure enough, there were half a dozen cameras. Microphones pointed my way. Mr. Merrick. One of them called. Is it true your former in-laws laundered your money through shell companies? Yes, I said simply. Do you regret leaking the documents? Another asked. Not at all. Transparency's underrated. Do you have a message for the Thompsons? I paused, letting the question hang. Yeah, I said finally. Tell them to pay their taxes. It builds character. The reporters laughed. Even they couldn't help it. I smiled politely, gave a small wave, and walked back inside. It wasn't arrogance. It was finality. The moment you stop chasing revenge and realize it's already doing laps around them, you stop needing to prove a thing. Back in my office, Eddie was watching the news feed with popcorn in hand like he was binging a Netflix show. You know, he said, if you ever get bored, you could make a career out of this. Corporate revenge consulting. I snorted. What? Like Batman with a briefcase. He shrugged. I'd invest. That night, I poured myself a drink and stood by my window, staring out at the city. My phone buzzed again. Claire. I hesitated for a second, then let it ring. She'd called 7 times since the story broke. Probably to cry, maybe to bargain, definitely to blame. But I didn't answer. Instead, I texted her 2 words. We're even. Then I turned off the phone and let the silence stretch. For the first time in months, I felt weightless. Not triumphant. Not angry. Just light. Eddie raised his glass from across the room. To the press conference that wasn't. I lifted mine. To the truth that was overdue. We clinked glasses, the city's glow reflecting off the glass, and I realized something. I didn't just win. I'd evolved. You know what the best revenge really is? Not making noise. It's being so calm, so untouchable, that your silence does the heavy lifting. And as the city lights flickered like applause below, I whispered the line I'd been saving all week. Half for the headlines, half for myself. Never underestimate a quiet man with admin access. By the end of that week, the Thompsons weren't just sinking, they were doing synchronized dives into financial ruin. Watching it unfold was like seeing a slow-motion car crash where everyone inside used to call you kiddo. Every news outlet had their version of the story. The mighty Thompsons crumble. East Shore Empire collapses under fraud allegations. Family values, luxury cars, and lies. The rise and fall of Long Island's Golden Clan. They were everywhere. Even the late-night shows made jokes. One host said, if karma were a person, his name would be Lucas Merrick. I almost spit out my scotch. Eddie texted me the clip with the caption, "You're famous now, boss. Want me to call your agent?" I didn't reply. Fame wasn't the point. Peace was. And peace, it turned out, looked a lot like bankruptcy paperwork with their signatures on it. By Monday morning, East Shore Developments officially filed for bankruptcy protection. Frank Thompson went from visionary CEO to defendant overnight. The board kicked him out faster than an unpaid bar tab. Their assets were frozen, their projects suspended, and their once pristine mansion now had foreclosure written all over it. You could practically hear the sound of generational wealth being vacuumed into the void. Lily tried to fight back online, of course. She posted some half-baked Instagram stories saying, "We're still strong. Haters gonna hate." The next slide was a photo of her luxury handbag collection for sale. Caption, DM for prices. I bought 2 of them anonymously. Petty? Absolutely. Therapeutic? You have no idea. By Wednesday, the rest of the family followed suit. Claire's mom listed her artisanal jewelry on Etsy. You know, the kind that looks like it was made by someone blindfolded. Frank's brother tried crowdfunding a family rebuilding fund. It got $22, and I'm pretty sure one of those was from Eddie. Claire, though, she went quiet. No calls, no texts, no statements. Not a word. And that silence bothered me more than I cared to admit. Because for all the fire and fury of this downfall, a part of me wanted her to face me one last time. Not to apologize, but to acknowledge it. To look at what she'd lost and realize I wasn't the boring man she'd written off. Then, late Thursday night, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it, but curiosity's a stubborn thing. Lucas. Her voice was soft, tired. Claire, I said, leaning back. Didn't expect to hear from you. I wasn't going to call, she said quietly. But everything's gone. Dad's business, Mom's accounts, Lily's job. It's all over. Yeah, I said flatly. That tends to happen when you build an empire with other people's money. I know, she whispered. I don't even know where to start. Start? I echoed. You mean rebuilding? Or apologizing? She didn't answer right away. Then, softly, both. That one hit differently. Not because I believed her, but because for the first time in months, she sounded like the woman I used to know. Not the entitled socialite. Not the manipulative wife. Just Claire. I sighed. You'll figure it out, I said finally. You always do. Lucas, she said, her voice trembling. I didn't love him. Dylan, it wasn't about that. I felt trapped. You were so focused on work and I needed validation. I finished. Yeah, heard that one before. You could have gotten a therapist. Cheaper than a condo. She sniffled. I'm sorry. I let the silence hang. She wanted absolution. I wanted peace. There's a difference. Claire, I said finally. You're not sorry for what you did. You're sorry you got caught. There's a distinction. I know, she said softly. But I really did love you. I laughed, not out of cruelty, but disbelief. Claire, you love the life. The dinners, the trips, the spotlight. You didn't love me. You loved what being with me said about you. That's not true, she whispered. Then tell me one thing. I said, if none of this happened, if you'd gotten away with it, would you still be here? Silence. That was my answer. Take care of yourself, I said, and hung up. Eddie found me an hour later in my office, staring out the window with a drink. She called, huh? I nodded. Yeah. He exhaled. You all right? Better than them, I said with a half smile. Worse than free. He sat across from me, placing a folder on the desk. Speaking of better than them, you might want to see this. Their house. Officially foreclosed. Banks repossessing next week. They're moving into a 2-bedroom apartment above a dry cleaner in Hempstead. I blinked. Wait, the mansion? Gone. He nodded. Poof. The American dream, now with fabric softener fumes. I laughed so hard I nearly spilled my drink. Oh, karma. You punctual bastard. Eddie grinned. You gonna go see it? What? The dry cleaner. I said, nah, I'll just drive by the mansion. Make sure the ghosts are comfortable. And I did. 2 days later, I drove past it, slow, deliberate, like revisiting an old battlefield. The gates were open, movers hauling furniture onto trucks, the once pristine garden now unkempt. I spotted Claire's dad arguing with a bank representative, his voice breaking with desperation. Lily sat on the curb, sunglasses on, scrolling her phone like maybe she could Google how to recover dignity. I parked down the street, engine off, just watching. It was surreal. This was the same house where I'd been treated like an outsider, the lucky husband who should be grateful to be allowed at their table. And now, that table was being carried away by movers making $15 an hour. Claire came out last, holding a box of framed photos. She looked around, at the garden, the driveway, the empty echo of what used to be her life. And for a second, she looked right at me. I don't know if she actually saw me, or if it was one of those coincidences life likes to play with, but I didn't look away. She froze, her face pale, then gave a small, bitter smile. It wasn't apology. It wasn't anger. It was something else, recognition. The moment two people finally understood the story was over. I started the car and drove off without saying a word. Some things didn't need a final line. That night, I sat on my balcony again, city lights flickering below. Eddie called, laughing his head off. You're gonna love this. Lily's selling motivational quotes on Instagram now. Calls herself a resilience influencer. I groaned. What's her slogan? Fail upward, fall forward. Pretty much, he said. And get this. Her latest post says, don't let haters define your narrative. Tell her to spell check bankruptcy first, I said dryly. He laughed harder. God, you're ruthless. Not ruthless, I said. Just uninvested. He went quiet for a moment. You ever think about what's next? Next? I said, leaning back. You mean after ending an entire family's generational wealth? Yeah, that's a tough act to follow. Eddie chuckled. No, I mean for you. Life. Moving on. I paused, staring out at the skyline. I'll figure it out. Maybe build something new. Something that's mine, not built to impress anyone else. He nodded. You'll do it. You always land on your feet. Yeah, I said softly. But next time, I'm landing solo. We hung up, and I stayed there a long time, just listening to the hum of the city. Below me, people were laughing, shouting, living, messy, human, and unpretentious. The opposite of the world I'd just escaped. It hit me then. Revenge had an expiration date. You can only live on the high of poetic justice for so long before you realize it doesn't refill your soul. It empties it. The Thompsons had fallen, sure, but now there was nothing left for me to awe. Just silence, and the faint memory of a man who once mistook kindness for weakness. I finished my drink, turned off the lights, and whispered into the dark, "We're even." And for the first time, I meant it. 1 year later, peace looked different. It didn't look like champagne toasts or front-page headlines. It looked like me, barefoot in my Manhattan penthouse at 6 in the morning, coffee in one hand, city lights spilling through floor-to-ceiling windows. I wasn't chasing anything anymore. Not deals, not validation, not the illusion of family. I'd learned that quiet wasn't emptiness. It was earned silence. I scrolled through my phone as the coffee machine hummed. The first notification that caught my eye made me smirk. Breaking, Thompson family files for bankruptcy. The same headline that had been looping for the last 48 hours. A smaller update underneath read, East Shore Development's assets auctioned to pay creditors. Guess the empire went retail, I muttered. Eddie texted 30 seconds later, because of course he did. They're officially out. The house, the cars, everything. You did it, boss. I sent back. Karma's got good timing. He replied with a gif of fireworks. Typical Eddie. I tossed my phone on the counter and walked over to the balcony. The city stretched beneath me, a maze of ambition and regret. I'd spent years climbing these towers, building a business from nothing, proving my worth to people who saw me as their ticket instead of their equal. And now, for the first time, I wasn't performing for anyone. I just existed. It was strange, though, how revenge had its own hangover. You win, you laugh, you sleep better, but deep down, there's this hollow spot where the fight used to live. It's not regret. It's just quiet. Too quiet at first. Like a radio you forgot you turned off. The elevator chimed behind me, and Eddie's voice followed. You really should lock your door. You're a walking Forbes headline waiting to happen. Relax, I said without turning around. The only people who could rob me are broke. He laughed, setting a pastry box on the counter. Touché. Got breakfast. And before you ask, no, I didn't bake it. I bought it, like a civilized adult. I turned, taking one of the croissants. You buying breakfast? That's suspicious. I'm celebrating, he said, plopping down on my couch. We closed the Vegas deal, the one you forgot existed. I sat opposite him. That's good news. Means I can afford to buy another penthouse to not live in. He grinned. You joke, but I know you. You'll be bored in a week. I shrugged. Maybe, but boredom beats betrayal. He raised his coffee in a mock toast. To that, for a while, we ate in comfortable silence. Eddie flipped through his tablet, reading out loud. Claire Thompson, now working as a marketing assistant at a small firm in Queens. Lily, trying to relaunch her influencer career with motivational quotes and a line of scented candles called Reignite. I almost choked on my croissant. Reignite? Oh, that's rich. Oh, it gets better, he said. Frank's teaching part-time business seminars at a community college. The irony is so thick you could butter toast with it. I leaned back, laughing quietly. Karma didn't just catch them, Eddie. It published the syllabus. He grinned. And you? What's next, almighty Avenger? I looked around my apartment. The minimalist furniture, the books stacked neatly on glass shelves, the faint jazz from the speaker. Maybe nothing, I said honestly. Maybe for once, I just live. No plans, no power plays. Just life. He raised an eyebrow. You? The guy who schedules his vacations in Excel? Even machines need updates, I said. He laughed. Fair. But seriously, man, you did what most people only dream about. You won. Publicly. Completely. Doesn't it feel good? It does, I admitted. But not the way I expected. I thought victory would feel loud. Champagne corks, applause, all that Hollywood nonsense. Instead, it feels quiet. Like exhaling after holding your breath for years. He nodded, thoughtful for once. Guess that's what real closure sounds like. Yeah, I said softly. It's not fireworks. It's silence that doesn't hurt anymore. Eddie left after an hour, muttering something about paperwork. I spent the rest of the morning sorting through old files. I opened a folder labeled Claire, Legal, thick with copies of bank statements, emails, photos, and signed agreements. Proof of everything. I stared at it for a while, then fed it through the shredder. Page after page disappeared into clean white ribbons. Every sound, that slow, mechanical hum, felt like release. By the time I was done, I felt lighter. My lawyer had kept digital backups, of course, but the paper, The physical weight of that chapter was gone. Around noon, my phone buzzed again. A number I hadn't seen in months. Claire. I almost ignored it, but curiosity has a cruel sense of humor. I answered. Hello. Lucas, she said, voice small, like she was calling from the edge of the world. I didn't think you'd pick up. Neither did I. There was a long pause. I heard about the company. Dad's not taking it well. I'm sure bankruptcy does wonders for the ego. I know you don't owe us anything, she said quietly, but I just wanted to say thank you. That one threw me. Thank me? For what? For ending it, she said. For forcing us to see what we'd become. You were right about everything. We built our whole lives on your back. I don't even know who I am without the noise. I didn't respond. There wasn't a good answer. Then she added, almost whispering, I hope you're happy, Lucas. You deserve to be. Yeah, I said finally. I think I'm getting there. She laughed softly, not bitter, just sad. You always did get there eventually. Before I could reply, she said, Goodbye, Lucas, and hung up. For a minute, I just stood there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. There was no anger left, no satisfaction, just a quiet understanding. It was over. For real this time. That evening, I poured myself a glass of Macallan and went to the balcony again. The city glowed below, taxis, skyscrapers, a sea of lives moving forward. For years, I'd thought power meant control. Now I knew better. Power was letting go and still standing tall. I took a sip, checked my phone, and saw another message from Eddie. Dinner tonight? You're buying. Sure, I typed back. But I'm picking the place. Somewhere peaceful. He replied, You? Peaceful? Miracles happen. I laughed. He wasn't wrong. Before I left, I opened my journal, something I hadn't touched since the divorce. I wrote one line. Victory isn't loud. It's the silence that stays after the storm leaves. Then I closed it. Dinner was at a quiet spot downtown. Dim lights, no paparazzi, no business chatter. Just good food and the kind of calm that money can't buy. Eddie toasted to new chapters. I toasted to fewer idiots. Afterward, I walked home instead of taking a car. The air was cool, the city humming in the background. Somewhere along the way, a street musician played a slow jazz tune on the saxophone, and for some reason, it felt like the soundtrack to my life. Soulful, imperfect, beautifully unfinished. When I got back to my building, the doorman handed me a small envelope. This came for you, Mr. Merrick. No return address. I opened it upstairs. Inside was a photo, the old Thompson mansion, now half demolished, weeds growing through the driveway. On the back, someone had written 3 words in neat cursive. You were right. No signature, but I knew that handwriting. Claire. I set it on the counter, smiled faintly, and poured another drink. The world has a funny way of closing its own loops. Before bed, I stepped out onto the balcony one last time. The skyline shimmered, alive, endless. Somewhere out there, people were building, breaking, betraying, forgiving. The cycle never ends, but mine had. I lifted my glass to the night and whispered, Here's to starting over. No audience, no applause, just the city listening. And for once, I didn't need to be heard, because the quiet wasn't lonely anymore. It was victory.